everyone. Blockchain Bernie here with my latest episode, broadcasting live from fabulous Las Vegas. So this episode is about forking a blockchain, and you might have heard of that. You might even have seen that meme with the fork in the middle of the road and a hard fork and all these type of things. What is that all about? I'll tell you all the details about it, and I'll tell you about what is good way of forking and what is forks that you'd better run away from. So if you like content like this, please give me that like button. Also subscribe to my channel. There's lots of content I'm uploading or live streaming 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. So I appreciate your like button. So forking, what does that mean? There's so many meanings of the word forking in blockchain, right? And the one that was there first and everyone heard about in the early days was like the same chain, the same software, the same blockchain client software, validator software, forks off, and then you have 2 different versions, right? Maybe there's a slight difference in the software because people couldn't agree on how to proceed, right? A famous one is with Bitcoin. Today there's Bitcoin and there's Bitcoin Cash. And the Bitcoin Cash guys thought like, well, Bitcoin was made to be a means of payment. And others thought like, well, Bitcoin is mainly a store of value. So the traditional Bitcoin kept being the Bitcoin, and then they forked off another version with a slightly different software. They just didn't implement the changes that the others did, and it's called Bitcoin Cash. And yeah, it's still out there. And we had the same thing with Ethereum. There's Ethereum Classic out there. And yeah, so most of the time, one fork kind of wins, and the other one is like an also-ran, right? So this definition of fork is one thing, but it's not the one I'm talking about today in a little bit more detail. The one I'm talking about today is when some new innovative blockchain just takes the software that is already there, and many blockchain projects are open source, right? And many of them have what's called a permissive license, right? So permissive license means it is open source, someone developed it, some group developed it, but new projects can take the source code and proprietarize them, right? So they can take the code and they are not obliged for all the changes that they make to it to also release it under the same license. So that's called a permissive license, right? And, famous permissive licenses are, for example, the MIT license, the BSD license, or the Apache 2.0 license. So Solana, for example, is licensed under Apache 2.0, and anyone can take the source code on GitHub and fork it, right? So that's the forking I'm talking about today, forking the repository on GitHub or wherever it's hosted, and starting with that code base and building their own more advanced, more innovative blockchain software on top of that. And why am I talking about this? Because we're doing it in Xandium. It's my own startup. We're building a scalable storage layer on top of smart contracts. We're using Solana as a base. So we have forked the Solana repo. It is legal because Solana was released under the Apache 2.0 license. And then we're building additional functionality on it. So with us, it's a lot of additional functionality, but not all of these have that. So let's have a look at some other projects right here. So for example, here we have Velus. Velus is a fork of Solana, but it's supposed to be the real Solana, but make it EVM compatible so that you can run that EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, the industry standard, right? Most smart contracts these days are written for the EVM, the Ethereum Virtual Machine, written in Solidity or some other languages, but mostly Solidity in case of the EVM. And then Velus set out years ago to make Solana EVM compatible, and they forked the Solana code but then they are dependent on catching up with the release cycle of Solana, right? So what they need is to be up to date with all the Solana releases because they claim to be the Solana, but EVM compatible, right? So they couldn't catch up with all the new releases that Solana keeps pushing out. So they fell back, way back in the release cycle. So in the Solana community, there's anecdotes being told these days about Velos being the example of how not to do it, right? And if you look back at their market cap, you can see that they were at 125 million here in October 22, and they went down to 22 million, 21 million as of today, which is actually not that bad, right? So there's so many other cryptos that have fallen way more than that, right? So this is a Solana fork that aims to make Solana EVM compatible. We have some other stuff here, for example, Jito. So let me show you Jito. So here's Jito. It is also a fork of the Solana software, and it's adding some functionality called MEV, maximum extractable value. So it can order transactions and group transactions so that users on DeFi can get their transactions grouped in a certain way so that they make more profit, and they can then tip the Jito community. And the Solana validator that we're running, it's called the Bitoku Validator. You can stake your Sol there, and it is running Jito, right, which is kind of an enhanced version of the Solana validator. But that also means, they do still the Solana thing, right? They just add a slightly more functionality, and they keep up with the release cycle. And you can see that because we're running Jito ourselves, right? Every time Solana comes out with a new release, it's going to take 3 or 4 days until Jito has that release also, because they need to pull the source code of the newest Solana release and then put in their changes there again, and then compile the whole thing and release it, right? So these are good forks, right? I mean, Jito is a fantastic project. It is a very successful project on Solana. It adds a lot of value, and it's just doing a slight upgrade, and it has forked the repository, puts in their changes, and then releases all this with the release cycles. What we're doing in Xandium with adding the scalable storage layer, we're building way, way more functionality. And we are aiming to build a blockchain of our own, right? It is an L1. We just start with the Solana source code, but then we add the Move language as the default language. And then in the Move language, we have a second storage layer, right? The first storage layer is the standard Solana accounts model, which is great for speed and a global state machine and stuff like that. But we are adding like a mass storage that is scalable so that, developers can develop their Web3 apps with gigabytes, terabytes, exabytes of storage that is still affordable. And that's running in a separate blockchain. So we have 2 blockchains then, right, that are interacting with each other. And one is for the storage and one's for the smart contracts. And the smart contract platform is just based off of the Solana source code. Because Solana is super fast, and that is super helpful to implement the other blockchain, our storage blockchain, because there we work with the zero-knowledge proofs, the ZK proofs, that the storage provider nodes are actually doing what they're supposed to do, and we can store these proofs on the Solana blockchain every 400 milliseconds. We have that slot time or block time, so usually every 400 milliseconds we have a block produced in Solana, so it's all fast enough to store our ZK proofs there. That way we can eliminate the proof of space-time that is destroying all those SSD drives and NVMe drives in the other storage chains. Very, very innovative stuff, and we feel it's a great way to just not start from zero with our software, but use what's out there, and the Solana software is out there, And we are still in the phase of, getting our feasibility done, whether we want to incorporate new Solana releases from time to time or just build our own thing and just fork off at some point in time, as we've did, and then go from there and build our chain. That's something, we're figuring out at the moment. But right now, we're busy developing all these additional things and adding that second storage, that delegated, scalable storage layer so that we can really develop Web3 apps. We call them SED apps, storage-enabled decentralized apps, SED apps. And that's what we want if we want to copy the Web 2 apps into the Web 3 sphere. And we're building that next week. Super exciting milestone. We're launching our incentivized DevNet. So if you haven't heard of that, go to Xandium.com. Check out our incentivized DevNet. And thanks so much for listening. What do you think about forking? Did I miss some of these cases, of these scenarios? Do you have a different opinion on what are good forks, what are bad forks? Do you have any experience with the Bitcoin fork and the Ethereum forks that happened years ago? Did you lose money there? Did you make money there by betting on Ethereum Classic? I know a lot of people that made a lot of money by betting for Ethereum Classic. So let me know about your experience down in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And thanks so much for listening, and catch you guys later. Bye.